Mame fa say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
This is a very simple matter, and I don't see why there's so much heat around such a very simple matter. The Office of Special Prosecutions decided that it wanted to investigate the award of contract to SNL. I think that was the case. And the process came to the conclusion that I think about 6 people ought to be tried for infractions of the law. This included the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, and a number of others who worked with him on this particular matter. Now, when it became obvious that he would not make himself available for trial, the Office of Special Prosecutor applied to the court for him to be tried in absentia. The court then directed that he should be served with the charges. From what I know, those charges, the Attorney General is trying to serve him through the Attorney General of the United States of America. And the Attorney General of the United States of America, at one stage, did indicate that it will be served after his immigration case. You understand? So that is where we are. The matter is actually in court. This attempt to extradite Ofori-Atta to Ghana is in relation to only one case, not his general stewardship. Only one case, which is the contract which is awarded to SNL. Now, I think that there's too much drama around this case. Too much drama around this case for a number of reasons. Because Ken Ofori-Atta was not just a minister, he was a very special minister. Indeed, the president then spent considerable amount of time and energy praising his cousin. And his cousin was seen as the Jesus Christ of the Akufo-Addo regime. He was the savior of the Akufo-Addo regime and so on. The controversy also involved a majority of members of the New Patriotic Party actually petitioning the president to remove him on grounds of incompetence, and the president's refusal to remove him and so on. So there's a lot of drama around him. Now, the case gets complicated somehow. You know, when the High Court rules that the Office of Special Prosecutor cannot carry out prosecutions without the fiat of the Attorney General, it strengthens Ofori-Atta's hands. Because he's being prosecuted by the Office of Special Prosecutor. And if a High Court in Ghana says that that office cannot prosecute, Ofori-Atta's hands get strengthened. You understand? So, for these matters to be resolved quickly, the Supreme Court will have to make a determination as to whether or not the Office of the Special Prosecutor, so moto, can try some criminal offenses. That is very, very important in securing the extradition of Ofori-Atta. Okay. Now, what has happened in the US is just that a court has decided that Ken Ofori-Atta is qualified as a permanent resident of the US. He's entitled to a green card. That's all that the court has decided. And this has nothing to do with his extradition. Now, it's important to note that even citizens of the US may be extradited. So obtaining a green card does not exempt you from being extradited to Ghana to face trial. Now, I sit back, I look at the drama which is unfolding, I look at this theater, so much noise and so on. about this one case involving one individual and so on. And I asked myself, why? Why so much drama and so on about this one individual? Part of it is that the political party to which he belongs, whilst pretending to stand aside in this matter, is actually using his case for politics, to advance what they consider to be a certain political interest. And that is why we have statements like, oh, Sadinam Tamakro has been convicted, he hasn't come, and the government is not worried about that, and they are worried about Ofori-Atta and so on. Now Sadinam has arrived, okay, has been extradited, is in Ghana, is serving a sentence. And then, interestingly, the New Patriotic Party and some of its leaders say that, oh, yes, we've heard that she's been brought back, but we haven't actually seen her in the cell. So we want to go to the prison and see her in the cells to believe that she's actually in the cells. You see, Mujib, you should be careful. Ghana's prisons are not zoos. The prisons are not zoos. You understand? And I was talking to one of your leaders. I said, look, are you saying that the whole prison service and its directorate and so on would lie about the performance of their job? And I said, we have no confidence in any state institution. And I said, my goodness, this is a huge statement. If you have no confidence in any state institution, what you're saying is that you don't believe that you are ever coming back to power. You understand? Because whatever you do to come back to power, the police must play its role. The Electoral Commission must play its role. The courts must play their role, and so on. Parliament must play their role. Now, if all of these institutions are appendages of government and cannot be relied upon to perform their functions without bias to your political party, how can you come to power? You understand? So some of the statements your leaders make, some of your leaders make, is exceedingly troubling. But they go out there and they make these statements, and they don't care. They don't even think about the implications of the statements that they make in the public space and so on. Look, I have always said that a person charged and put before court is innocent until proven guilty. But just this morning I was going through the Constitution and I've been proved wrong. There are two conditions. Proven guilty by a competent court or by pleading guilty. That's what the Constitution says. I'll find that person. Oh, somewhere, somewhere. Yes, it says, a person charged with a criminal offense shall be given a fair hearing within a reasonable time by a court. And it says, that person shall be presumed to be innocent until he's proved or has pleaded guilty. So there are two conditions. So if you plead guilty by yourself, that one, there's nothing you can do. You are guilty. Yes. But in the specific case of Ken Ofori-Atta, he has not pleaded guilty and he has not been found to be guilty. So there's a presumption of innocence. And that presumption of innocence entitles him to so many things. You understand? So many things. He has so many rights which will be respected if he himself came into the country. Because of the way he appears to be conducting himself and so on. Now, he has, as they say, worsened this case. Because if he came back to Ghana now, you have an uphill task convincing any court to grant him bail. You understand? Why do you impose this burden upon yourself? If Ken Ofori-Atta had voluntarily come into the country and had been charged and put before court and so on, the likelihood is that he would have been granted bail. And nobody could have kept him in custody for more than 48 hours. You understand? He may not even have been in custody at all. And he probably today will be living a comfortable life with his family as the case proceeds. And then at the end of the case, he may not even be found guilty and he will go home and continue to enjoy his life. But he has complicated matters by the posture he has taken, by his refusal to come home and so on. Now, you have made a statement, your lawyers have made a statement, you yourself have made statements to the effect that we are in the US because we have prostate cancer. Okay, prostate cancer, that's what he has, prostate cancer. And that as soon as, your state of health permits, you are coming back to face the charges that have been prepared against you. Then you go and apply for green card. So what are you saying? Now you want to stay in the United States of America permanently. What does that convey?
It's not about medical condition.
You understand? Besides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us sitting around this table, which one of us can say that he doesn't know of somebody who is suffering from prostate cancer, who goes to work in Ghana every day, who is living a normal life? Prostate cancer now does not have debilitating impact on life. People go for surgery, within 1 week they are back to work. You understand? People carry the cancer, they do everything. They drive throttle, and so on. So how is prostate cancer, in his particular case, so debilitating that he has to go and get a green card and stay in the United States of America permanently? I don't understand these things. But maybe persons like you and I, who didn't go to law school, our understanding may be different from those who went to law school. I don't know. But his family, his friends, and so on should have advised him to do the appropriate thing, and stop this prostate cancer story. It doesn't wash. Prostate cancer. I have a friend who had prostate cancer, who underwent surgery, and after surgery was actually bleeding. He was bleeding for a week. I saw the man yesterday driving a truck. You see, constitutions are by their nature designed to make life a little uncomfortable for those in whose hands we have entrusted our mandate. Constitutions are meant to be a check. We have constitutions to guide governance and so on, because we don't want the people we elect to behave like animals, to just act on the basis of their instinct and so on. That's why we elect to live in a law-governed society, to tie their hands when necessary, to release the leash a little and so on. That's what constitutions are meant to be. So I get very worried when the argument is made that sometimes the constitution is too restrictive and therefore needs to be amended and so on. In any case, who in Ghana can argue that all the problems we have in this country are the results of the text of the Constitution. Nobody can make that argument. Why? We've had doom saw on a number of occasions and so on because of the Constitution. Who can argue that way? Or that access to education is limited because of the Constitution. So let's be real. I mean, this business of running to tinker with the Constitution and so on, sometimes really it's self-serving and does not address the fundamental problems of our country. You understand? We are not in the state we are in today because of the Constitution. And that's my basic worry. Now, this whole discussion or debate has thrown up arguments which, for me, are very deeply troubling. We have elected for ourselves a multi-party dispensation which necessarily strives on difference. You understand? We have a multi-party system because we assert that there are differences in society and that these differences ought to be in constant competition so that we can get the best. Then we can run and say, oh, you need a national plan to which everybody must subscribe. You are eliminating difference. Why don't have a multi-party dispensation? If there's a plan that MPP comes, it will implement. UP comes, it will implement. CPP comes, it will implement. NDC comes, it will implement the same plan. Why bother to go for an election? So you are reducing governance, the structure of governance, to a civil public service kind of thing. And I totally reject it. There is no basis for it. In any case, the National Development Planning Commission, who composes the National Development Planning Commission? They are appointed like all other, by the president. So under the current circumstances, President Mahama, who has gone for an election and been elected by the people of Ghana, cannot have a say on a plan, and that his plans have to be subjected to the approval of a commission chaired by Nimoy Thompson, who was appointed by the president. How does this make sense? That should be how this makes sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. What is even worrying is the suggestion that you need to have a long-term plan. So some people suggest a 15-year plan. Why? Given the rate at which things change, and so, how do you have a 15-year plan? Even our budget, now we cannot plan a budget for 1 year. We have now introduced a mid-year review program because we said that the assumption made for 1 year can change very quickly. Then you go and draw up a 15-year plan. What is wrong with you?
Maybe the framework. That one has to be the plan, I agree.
So end of ideology. Ideological differences will not exist anymore.
No, it will exist.
That is the framework you're talking about.
No, but the point is that...
Solo, please. I know what I'm talking about. This end of ideology, this end of difference and so on, is not healthy for any country, has never been healthy for any country. Then let's have a monarchy. Let's stop this argument. It's not worth it, you understand? We shouldn't be making that argument. The other thing which irks me, and indeed our friend Hamza has spoken at length about it, my brother, whether you like it or not, there will be an age qualification for the presidency. Unless you want to say that a day-old baby can be president. If a day-old cannot be president, there must be a cap. If a 3-year-old cannot be president, there must be a cap. There will be a cap at all times. Whatever cap we choose ought to be based on science. You understand? Ought to be based on science. Science ought to lead us. It's not arbitrary. I mean, 20 years is good, 30 years is good, 50 years is good, and so. What informs that decision? What is the science that informs that decision? You understand? So that is my attitude. And I've said on this platform that for me the age thing is a bit problematic at all times. And I've said constantly that I've seen crazy young people, absolutely foolish young people before. You understand? And I've seen old men who lost it a long time ago and so on. So, at what age do people mature to become leaders and so on? It's a question of science. And we can determine which science we should apply in order to come to that conclusion. But it's not a question of the old versus the young and so on. Some of the young people I've seen in politics, they actually frighten me.
Worse.
I'm telling you, some of the young people I've seen in politics, they frighten me. And I will be so frightened to hand over power to those kinds of young people that I see in politics today. And you all know. You all know. Hamza knows. He's seen some of them. So that kind of debate for me is not the issue. Then there's this other question about extending the 4-year term. Some say to 5 years, some say to 7 years, and so on. Mind you, whatever recommendations the Constitutional Review Committee has come up with would not be accepted in full if it goes through the process prescribed by the Constitution. The president who appointed the committee, who has received their recommendations, can change some and say, no, I disagree with this, I agree with that. When it goes to the Council of State, the Council of State is free to make changes and to suggest changes. Parliament can change some and can suggest changes. In some instances, all of us who have to vote in a referendum can throw it away. Okay? So they may be suggesting 5 years. In the final analysis, we could end up with an 8-year term, with a 10-year term, and so on. Now, I'm saying that it is not the number of years that a person serves as president which determines the outcome of that presidency. And our own history bears testimony. Look at what Kwame Nkrumah did to this country. Look at all the projects, 400 industries and so on. All of that happened in a period of 9 years. Only 1 term more than the 2 terms that our elected presidents have been enjoying. Only 1 year more. So what is this fixation about term of office and so on? If you have a serious president who wants to work, he can work within the 4-year term, and if he works within the 4-year term and he is acceptable by the people of Ghana, he will be given another 4. That's 8 solid years. It is sufficient to transform this country. So I don't buy that argument. That's an argument which has no merit at all. Why? Sometimes you hear people say that, oh, you elect a president and it takes him a long time to form his government. If you elect anybody who takes a long time to form his government, it means he was not ready for the job. It means when he was campaigning, he was deceiving us. Because if you want to be given the state of Ghana to run, why? Before you campaign, you should have an idea of who and who you are going to get to do the job. It's part of the preparation. You don't get elected before you start looking left and right and center and calling people and so on. You must have a team. You must have your team ready. So that argument is not an argument we should tolerate at all. You understand? Look, the 1992 Constitution, I am sure that if you went to the 35 million people of Ghana, the proposed amendments you will get will be in the millions. Somebody likes this part, somebody doesn't like this part, and so on. What we have It's a certain aggregate that all of us have agreed that, look, let's try and work with it. Just for example, if I look at chapter 1 of the Constitution, read from chapter 1, I have a fundamental problem with the Constitution. Why? We said that this country is a secular state. And yet references to God and so on are too many and unnecessary and so on. So I have that problem with the Constitution. The Constitution truly, if you're a secular state, should reflect the secularity of the state and so on. But I'm not going to fight over that, because it doesn't change anything for me. You understand what I mean? Why? A lot of argument has been made about the election of district and municipal chief executives. It started way before 1992. We have continued to make that argument. We've never been able to implement it. Is that why the district assemblies are not working? Is that why the municipal assemblies are not able to satisfy the needs and aspirations of people? No, it is not. There are other more fundamental reasons why they are not working. You understand? If you take aspects of the Constitution dealing with corruption, there's one particular issue which has nagged us over a long period of time, and it's this issue of the declaration of assets. People have said, why do people declare their assets in secret? Because you declare your assets, it's not open until there's an issue and so on. So it's secretive. People say, lift the veil of secrecy over declaration of assets. Is that why there's corruption in this country? I don't think so. And then the declaration of assets of spouses is another issue we've talked about over a long time. Is that why there's corruption in this country? No, it is not. You understand? If the people we elect commit themselves to governing well, using the resources of our country prudently, if the people we elect understand the role we've imposed upon them and so on, and work properly, this country will move forward. This country is not in the state in which we are because we have a constitution, or we have the like of the 1992 constitution. So we should stop overflocking the issue of the constitution. You understand? Why? The president appointed a number of academics and so on, some of whom are known to have opposed his party for years and so on. And said, look, go and look at the constitution and bring up proposed amendments and so on. He's the president. But otherwise, we are entitled to, why did you select these people instead of another set of people? That itself is a long debate. You understand? Then there's another contentious issue about whether or not people with dual nationality, should be able to serve as ministers and so on. What, are we crazy? And then, if you argue, they say, oh, remittances from abroad. Remittances is the position for sale. What is this? Can you imagine us having a minister of defense who also happens to be a citizen of Israel? Can you just imagine that? It's a citizen of Israel and it's a citizen of Ghana. Can you imagine what will happen? Huh? Or just imagine that our Minister of Interior is a U.S. citizen and a Ghanaian citizen. Why is that allegiance? How does he address issues of national sovereignty and so on? So this is not an issue that we should even be concerned about. But you see, when you set up a constitutional review committee, whose membership may include persons with dual nationality, this is the recommendation you get.
You made the head of the group or something.
Huh?
He didn't say it.
What I'm saying is that if you set up a constitutional review committee, whose membership may,
This one is not me, includes. It's for fun.
I don't know.
You are now qualifying it. So Chaba is not.
I'm saying, whose membership may include people who have dual nationality. What recommendation are you expecting? What recommendation are you expecting? You are either a Ghanaian or you are not a Ghanaian. If you don't like being a Ghanaian, don't be a Ghanaian. It's not a force. You understand what I'm saying? And look, in the 1980s and 1990s, the kinds of things that Ghanaian citizens went abroad and said about their country in order to be able to qualify for green card and so on and so on.
They still do.
I mean, and then you sit down and say that these people who virtually disowned their own nationality, who said that Ghana was not worth living in and so on, and who did this only because in some instances they get better pay as cleaners than as office clerks. They prefer cleaning toilets and so on to being office clerks in Ghana and so on. You say, oh, it doesn't matter, come and become minister, top minister. It matters. Allegiance to the country is important in making appointments. So I don't know where that argument is coming from, but it's an argument which is being made. I'm only one of 35 million Ghanaians or 34 million Ghanaians. I'm only one. So if in the final analysis decided that you can have quadruple nationality and still become president of Ghana, fine. Can you imagine the president of Ghana who is a citizen of Denmark and a citizen of Ghana at the same time?
Very happy to Fuwan.
Yeah, Ofei Boayi, when he became president of La Côte d'Ivoire, was actually a member of parliament in Paris. But when he came to La Côte d'Ivoire, he was president. Is that the kind of situation you want? My brother, it's okay.
Dedi kama mamenda PENDREAM TV ase. Na so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.